Well, I'm a translator, not a language teacher, but I'm going to talk briefly about the three different ways to say thank you in Chinese. The easiest thing you can do is say 谢谢, which literally just means thank you, but I think it's closest culturally to thanks. 谢, 谢. 谢 is downward tone, XIE, but it's pronounced with the tongue. If you imagine your tongue is a straight line, you're going to bend it up ever so slightly at the front, which is a bit of a weird shape for Westerners. We don't do this with our mouth very much. Even in extreme dialects, they do this. So you say 谢谢. It's fourth tone, but what you do is you say the first, when you get a repeated character like that, the first one you say the tone really clearly, and the second time you do it as a neutral tone. So it's kind of like 谢谢 rather than 谢谢. It's 谢谢. The second time you much less emphasis, much less. The tone is almost removed completely. Sometimes you call it fifth tone. 谢谢. Another way to say it is 多谢. 多 means many. 多 as in 多少钱, how much. 多谢, it, very equivalent meaning wise to many thanks in English, but there's a crucial difference. 多谢 is somewhat more formal than 谢谢. Many thanks in English isn't that much more formal than thanks. It's a bit more formal maybe, but 多谢 is notably more formal. You would use it at more formal occasions. An occasion where somebody might wear a tie. Rule of thumb. There you go. You might wear a tie, then say 多谢. And also you can use 多谢 for something that happened in the past by adding a marker 了 on the end. So you can say 多谢了. You usually use that to refer to something that just happened. But it's usually a kind of status that happens. So for the last hour you were sitting, you were doing that action of sitting for an hour, so that you've now changed status because now I've now finished my talk. So I'm going to say 多谢了, thank you for that status that you just made. If you give me a banana as a gift, here's a banana, here's a cup, you you haven't really changed the status, it's just been a kind of temporary action, so you wouldn't put the le on the end usually, but you can still put it on for emphasis. But yeah, the le goes on the end if it's something that was kind of quite a big imposition that's taken, rule of thumb, more than 10 minutes. And the other one is gan xie. Gan, third tone. Gan means to thank, to feel, like gan qing or gan en or something like that. And gan xie means I feel thankful. And this is a really cool one for translators because we've got what's called a hidden subject. The subject of gan in this case will always be I. You can't change it to he or she without causing a bit of cognitive dissonance to the reader. Dissonance, whatever. So you, whereas 多谢 or 谢谢, that there's still the hidden subject of I, but for 感谢 that hidden subject is kind of buried into it, so it's kind of like I feel thankful for you. So again, the example I gave in the article is writers and singers and performers will tend to say 感谢, like, oh, I feel thankful for your appreciation for sitting through my play. Whereas politicians giving a speech and auditors or whatever will say 多谢, thank you for your attention. Cultural note: this little gesture that I'm making here, left hand open over a right fist, and you say thank you. That's a kind of old school Chinese, like sometimes called a Chinese handshake, but I don't call it that. But it's an old school Chinese way to say thank you. You might say 多谢. If you're a foreigner, I wouldn't do that unless you want to look a bit, I don't know, I think it looks a bit strange. And the other thing is, if people give you things, you tend to try and take them with two hands rather than one. So if I give you a cup, you would reach out with both hands and say 谢谢, rather than 多谢. Good luck with your Chinese.